What is the smallest lie you've ever told which had the biggest consequences? When I was a young teenager that had just discovered what masturbation was, I would finish into an old white t-shirt of mine and throw it in the bottom drawer of my dresser. Months went by with this routine and the shirt ended up getting crusty yellow stains on it. Why I didn't use something more disposable or throw the shirt in the wash, I have no idea. My mother eventually found the shirt one day, after deciding to put my washed clothes in the dresser. I come home from school to find both my parents sitting at the kitchen table with a shirt in front of my spot. My mother starts to shriek about how terrible drugs are for you and that inhalants will destroy my brain. I was too ashamed and embarrassed to tell them the truth, so I shamefully apologized and owned up to using inhalants to get high. From then on, there were no aerosol cans allowed in the house and I had lost the respect and trust of my parents for the longest time. Ended up being extensively grounded and shamed, all because I decided to jizz in a shirt and wouldn't own up to it. Should have just told your dad, dude. But that truly is my biggest fear. Don't worry too much. My friend took a bed to put powder soap in his nose, started to bleed and never stopped, so he had to go to the doctors. Doctor didn't believe he wasn't doing C. In the 2nd grade I told the substitute that my real name wasn't Asa, it was Sarah, and the family that was keeping me made me change my name. I missed being Sarah. Fast forward a couple hours. CPS is at our house and my parents were livid. I walked in on my friend finishing a conversation on her phone. She looked at me, petrified, and asked if I heard everything. I told her with a defeated face yes. She starts crying and leans on me telling me she is so afraid and doesn't know what to do. I did this in Italy as a joke, but obviously I am in deep water now, so I just tell her everything will be fine and to call me whenever she needed me. Turns out she got pregnant and asked me to go to an abortion clinic with her. Her boyfriend scrammed. We are best of friends now. Holy crap, that got real fast. In college, the girls in the apartment downstairs asked my roommate and I if we'd like to join them at a concert a month away. Neither of us wanted to, and my quick thinking roommate said that date is my birthday. It wasn't, and we have other plans. They ended up not going to the concert, and we had forgotten about it. But on that date they called me downstairs to help them move something. I walked in the door, and surprise, a birthday party for me with about 15 people there. My roommate was just as surprised. I couldn't tell them the truth and just went with it. Even got a couple small gifts. I always felt guilty about it. One of those girls was definitely into one of you guys. My friends and I accidentally got a kid suspended. We finished the last class of our day before lunch on a Friday, and we were feeling pretty good, so we picked up a handful of rocks and tried to see who could throw them the furthest. Turns out one hit our teacher. She brought us into the office and made us tell the VP our story. Since she wasn't in the room, we lied through our teeth and made up a description of a kid we'd never seen before. A week later, the guidance teacher approaches us and tells us she's glad we didn't take the blame for the kid who threw rocks because the principal found out who it was and he's be getting a 3-day suspension from school. Once when I was a kid I invited a kid that I bullied horribly over to my house for a sleepover because I was told I had to do something nice for someone I hurt by our priest during confession. I went to a Catholic school. The next day after a pretty boring night we were playing in the snowbanks and I lied telling him my foot was stuck and I couldn't get it out. He ran well over a mile back to my house to get my mom to save me. Well, that kind of woke me up and made me realize this kid isn't that bad. After that day I never bullied anyone again. And 20 years later that turd that I bullied so terribly is still my best friend, was the best man at my wedding, and the godfather of my first child. I like the stories where OP learns a lesson and the story has a happy ending. When my sister and I were kids, I told her the Easter bunny came through the drain. I thought it was cute, and since Santa came through the chimney I couldn't think of any other routes into the house. She cried for hours. Easter became the most miserable holiday for years until we grew up and she realized what an idiot I am. Till Pennywise is the Easter bunny. I've told this story before, but during my undergrad I took a number of business courses. During one of these courses we were learning about a small company that produced high-end jam. The prof asked the class what we thought of high-end jam as a business. I said that it was a stupid idea. Why would I pay $20 for a bottle of jam when I could make it myself? I meant that as a rhetorical question, but apparently my prof took my literally. When I was packing up at the end of class, the prof came over to me and started asking me all sorts of questions about jam making. So I rolled with it. I lied and told him how my grandmother taught me how to make jam, when the right time to pick the berries was to ensure optimal jam, etc. I don't know how to make jam. I had no idea what I was saying, but the prof bought it. We became buds. After every class we would chat, mostly about jam. He wrote my reference letter to get into my competitive undergrad program, and again when I applied for my master's. I owe most of my academic career to jam. I bet the prof knew you were lying and just wanted to see how long you would keep it up. After seeing your outstanding dedication to this lie, he was happy writing you a letter of reference. Being the youngest sibling, I was always getting razzed, so one time they told me as I was starting school to look out for the fiery drill. I had never been in school, so I asked what it was. You will hear a loud bell that warns children when this man comes to the school and attacks with a drill that's on fire and tries to drill into the kids' brains. So a few weeks into school there is a fire drill. So I take off screaming like crazy, hoping to survive, running as far away from the school as I could. My mom was not too happy with my siblings when she got the call from our school telling her I was gone. That's freaking hilarious. Oh man. When I was 7 I had been learning how to play the keyboard for 2 years. It was one of those Casio keyboards that had light up keys to learn how to play a song. If you put the easy setting on, you could literally hit 1 or 2 keys over and over again and it would play the entire song through. So at the age of 7 my grandparents thought I was a prodigy. I could play Fur Elise, Canon Indie and Moonlight Sonata. Family and friends would come over to listen, watch me play, and were astounded. 2 years or so go by like this. For my 10th birthday my grandparents bought me a real piano and signed me up for a summer camp where prodigies of different instruments went to compete. Very expensive. My entire family, friends from school and a priest family friend was there for my birthday party and wanted to hear me play on my new piano. I broke down crying and ran to my room and confessed to my grandmom what I had been doing for years, and it broke her heart and trust for me. It sucked. I still cringe when I think about it. I've been playing for over 20 years now though and can play all of the songs I listed and probably hundreds more now. OMG. I did the same thing, but only as a prank one time, lol. I love that keyboard. Amazing you can play now, so I guess it worked out. When I was about 13 I called a little boy ugly. At the time, my mom's best friend was driving me home from school. Of course she told my mother what I said, and my mom asked me to not say things like that. I told her I didn't call anyone ugly. It was a little lie. At first I didn't know what she was talking about, and it became this big whole ordeal about my kid would never lie to me and why would I lie about this. They were best friends and they no longer speak because of this. All 3 of us were dumb and immature. I hate it when parents think their kids are saints. I would totally believe my long-term friend telling me my kid did something like that over my kid saying they didn't. When I was younger at a birthday party, a girl asked me for a quarter to call home for her dad to come get her. I told her that I didn't have one and she got a ride home from another parent. Later, I heard that when she got home, she found ambulances around her house because her father had died falling out of a tree doing yard work. I kept imagining that if I had given her the quarter, her dad would have come to get her instead of continuing yard work. If I had given her a quarter, maybe she would still have a father. You really shouldn't beat yourself up about this. Just think about it, the situation had so many possible outcomes. His phone could have been turned off, she could have dropped the quarter down a drain. Heck, he could have just decided to get down before the moment he fell. Don't let your life be consumed by guilt for something that could have gone millions of different ways. Back when I was 16 I was a camp counselor for a group of kindergartners. A few of them wouldn't stop shoving each other, so I told them jokingly to save it for Fight Club, which was at the end of the day. Being kids they thought Fight Club was real and told their parents about Fight Club, which resulted in me having to explain to the administration and all the parents that number. There was no Fight Club. I wasn't hired the following year. They broke the first rule of Fight Club. Surprising that these kindergartners would so easily out you. When I was little, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was playing with my cousin. He was my best friend, even if we have grown apart in the last few years. Anyway, I told him if he jumps out of the tree onto the trampoline, he can get into the club. He jumped and jarred his knee. He screamed blow murder. There was no club. There was no entry test. The injury plays up till this day. It affected him when he was playing gridiron. He had to give it up. It affected him when he joined the army and again when he became a cop. I'm worried one day he dies because of that knee and I'll blame myself for it. At least I made it into the club. Guy's tombstone. Back in 3rd grade, my friend dropped his brownie on the floor in the cafeteria because he said he didn't want it. When the lunch aide came over, she asked me whose brownie it was and I said it was there when we got there because this was my best friend and I couldn't snitch on him. Later that day I was called into the principal's office and was questioned vigorously on this brownie like it was a big deal. I held my ground and denied everything, but then for the rest of time I spent in elementary school I was never allowed any treats, snacks, drinks in any classroom throughout the school. Tough love if you ask me. Once when I was really young, maybe 6 or 7, my family was out for pizza and I told them when I was off alone that a man had asked me to come out to his van for candy. I have no idea why I did it. I'm sure I was just parroting something I heard in one of those stranger danger videos, but I threw it out there thinking people would be impressed I said no or something. Well, all of a sudden there are police everywhere. The whole pizza place is basically evacuated. The police are grilling me about what he looked like and I'm making up a description on the spot. Something like blonde hair, green plaid shirt, etc. Well, a few minutes later the police come out with a guy who looks exactly like the description I gave, and I quickly told them that it wasn't him. Thank God I didn't ruin that poor man's life. After all that, I thought it was done, but I got so many cards and balloons and toys from relatives, family, friends, teachers. There was a write-up in the local newspaper, etc. It blew up into this huge deal. For a really long time I never told anyone, and for some reason a few years ago, in my late teens, early 20s, I remembered this incident and felt super guilty about it. So I called my mom out of the blue to explain that I made it all up. I'll still never forget her reaction. Huh, that's a weird thing to lie about. I'll still never forget her reaction. Huh, that's a weird thing to lie about. I'm not sure what I was expecting her reaction to be, but it wasn't that. Not me, but a good friend of mine. Those are not my pants. We were at a party and he had sex with a girl and he came back without his pants. I asked them where they were and he said he didn't know. We sat there drinking for a while and this huge guy came up and started yelling and said that someone slept with his girlfriend and all he had to go on were a pair of pants he found next to her. She said she was too drunk to remember anything. He said of course those are not my pants. And then he elaborated and said he managed to crap himself earlier and they were in the washer. Well, we all backed him up because we knew he was crap at fighting. The guy found the only other guy in the party who wasn't wearing pants. No clue why. And he punched him in the chest, max out. Unknown to anyone. The guy had a heart defect. The punch caused the wall of his heart to blow out. He was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. The guy who punched him is in jail for manslaughter and is on suicide watch last I heard because he keeps trying to kill himself. Oh boy, wow. I'm late but I really need to get this off of my chest. I was about 12 years old when we had grandparents' day at my school. And I don't know about you guys but I was completely disinterested in my family until basically, it was too late to start caring. So even though I knew my grandparents came to have lunch with me that day, I decided I would have rather go outside and play with my friends who didn't have their grandparents there. Eventually the guilty feeling chewed into my stomach and I came back in about 5 minutes before the bell rang. There I saw my grandparents, alone on the other side of the room. I hurried over and told them I had forgotten they were coming. We talked for a few minutes and I thoroughly enjoyed it. When our short time was up, I regretted even more that I had ditched them to go do something I could do every day. After that, my grandparents' health declined and they didn't come to my school to see my orchestra performances and such after that, even though the school was really close to their house. Since then my grandma has died, but my guilt from that day never died with her. I live in Japan and call my grandpa a lot. I like to think maybe someday the guilt will go away, but when I think about it I still get worked up enough to start crying over it. I know I was just a stupid kid, but I knew better and acted like a selfish child anyway. I hate that about me, and I think this experience is one of the many that fuels my guilt when I do something I'm not supposed to. It makes me feel so guilty I've never told anyone. So thanks for reading, I guess. I told my mom I hated her the morning she passed away. I was 10. She was 39. I wish I could take it back every single day. Not sure if this counts as a lie, but I convinced my sister that the word dead meant gone. My little sister is 16 years younger than me. When she started talking, every time someone would leave the room, I'd say X dead, like mummy dead. Eventually, she believed that the word dead meant gone, and she started to use it herself. Needless to say, my mother wasn't very happy, but we all found it kind of funny, to be honest. And when you laugh at something a child does, they do it again and again. She got to about 2.5 years old, and my mum dropped her off at nursery. Up until this point, for whatever reason, she'd never said it outside the house. So in the middle of the day, when she said mummy dead, the care workers at the nursery freaked the frick out. They tried to ring my mum, but she is notoriously terrible with phones and so didn't answer. She's also quite often late. The workers at the nursery were apparently just about to ring the police when my mum finally showed up. She had to explain what her big brother had done. I was practically crying with laughter when I was told what happened. TLDR. Convinced my young sister that dead meant gone. She scared some nursery workers with what they thought was a premonition of some kind. I told my 3-year-old son I was God just to be funny. No matter how many times I tell him I am not God, he still thinks I am to this day. I was at a job fair against my will, was trying to steal a pen so I could retire to a dark corner and doodle while everyone else did their thing. The lady caught me taking a pen, and I had to act interested in her sales pitch. Then a news reporter showed up. Before I knew it, I was in national papers as a general human interest story, as a turnaround miracle story of how I'd come all the way from the barren plains of another country far away while kicking mental illness and addiction, and now wanted to become a nurse. I don't, nor have I ever, wanted to be a nurse, but that interview sure snowballed all out of proportion. All I wanted was a free pen. It's been 10 years and people are still asking how the nursing career is going. When I was 13, I was really into watching interracial gangbang P. I had a friend who was already sleeping around at that age, and she had a thing for black guys. Relevant. I live in Mississippi. My parents had always said they would not be okay with me dating black or Hispanic men, but Asians were fine. They eventually changed their mind and apologized for being so ignorant. +1 parents. When my stepdad saw my search history, he asked me about it in his scary stepdad voice. I immediately said my friend used my computer the night before. He called her mother and told her she was banned from my house, and, because of the P, she found out my friend was having sex. She was withdrawn from school and sent to a Christian academy. A year later she kicked her out of her house and she became a homeless crack addict. She's recovered now, but I often wonder how different things could have been had I just admitted I liked looking at black dongs. Whoa, lied about P and someone becomes homeless and a crack addict. Yeah, that goes right with the theme of this thread. I was 16, drunk, and said I had a tattoo on my butt. The next day people asked and I played shy, but Billy isn't a liar, so in time for next party I got a tattoo on my butt. When I was 7 or 8, my friend and I were playing underneath a deck. They had a rickety pool ladder that was meant to let you get into their above ground pool. We were just chilling, playing with invisible dogs or some crap, when we looked up and noticed some twigs sticking out from the rafters on the underside of the deck. The big red animal light started flashing in our heads, and she held the ladder still while I climbed up it. We found a robin's nest with 4 eggs in it, and I can still remember to this day what they looked like. I've always liked the color. Being little and stupid, we pulled the nest down and went to go show my mom. My mom opened the door, saw the nest, and immediately said, "Where did you guys get this?" Being little and stupid, I immediately said, "We found it on the ground near the pool." My mom was angry, but I didn't understand why. She said something about the mama bird not wanting the eggs anymore and called my dad down. He looked annoyed, but took the nest from us and walked down the driveway, across the street, and stood under the deck asking us where we found it. Sticking to our story, we showed him the ground underneath the rafters. There. So he grabs the pull ladder and starts to climb up, and I don't really remember this part at all, but what I do know is the ladder broke. He fell, and everything else that happened is just kind of gone from my head. What I do know is this: he absolutely shattered his ankle. He had to be out of work for a long time, had surgeries, and on top of it all, the accident forced him to leave the rescue squad he had been a part of since like college. The rescue squad that is the only reason he ever met my mother. He says he left because of my little brother being a year or two before, but I am like 90% sure that was not it. 3 of the eggs broke, and I can still see them shattered on the patio ground. Maybe it's not a big deal to anyone else here, but I literally still feel guilty about it, and it was close to 2 decades ago. I made my dad give up his literally life-saving pastime, caused him recurring pain for the rest of his life, all because I couldn't keep my hands off of a dang bird's nest. When I was in high school, I was running late, so I crossed the street and jumped over a chain rope. My foot got caught and I ended kissing the street. I was between the main entrance and a huge intersection. My shame was so big, because how can you trip when the chain was so low, that I just stayed on the floor, closed my eyes, and when I was trying to pick up the courage to stand, a woman stops her vehicle fast and comes down running at me, yelling that I was hit by a car. Everyone started getting flustered. My mom was screaming because she didn't saw anything, just me dead. I was so ashamed that I just kept going with the flow. The school staff took me to the doctor. The doctor was asking me a lot of questions and I just nodded and tried to act like it was hurting a lot. Next day everyone at my school asked me if I was ran over. I moved my head up and down and told everyone yes. 8 years later I tell my mom that I was so embarrassed that I closed my eyes for a little while on the sidewalk trying to pick up enough courage and suck up my teen pride. But everyone else thought I was hit by a car and dead. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.